Two friends go shopping for new clothes for a 23rd birthday party. Another couple joins them for champagne and shots at this exclusive Boston club. There's dancing, but danger is lurking. And one of them is not going to make it home.
That was the last time all of her friends really saw her.
She'll never turn 23. This party is over, and police are on the trail of a killer. Jassie Correa lives with her young daughter in Lynn, Massachusetts.
Lynn is the North Shore. It's about 20 minutes north of the city of Boston. It is a very predominantly Hispanic Latino population, African American population.
Lynn is about 12 minutes away from Boston, where Jassie commutes to work as a waitress. Her good friend Nia lives in Dorchester. It's the morning of Saturday, February 23rd, 2019. Jassie drops her child off to her paternal grandmother for the night. She heads to Dorchester to spend a party weekend with Nia, and they've decided to go to a nightclub.
Jassie was going out to Venue for her birthday. Venue is a pretty popular club in Boston. It can be very exclusive. It can be very hard to get into. So a lot of people want to go there for, birthdays, celebrations, things like that. It's not always a place where you can just kind of stumble into. You kind of have to coordinate that.
Since she knows her daughter is safe, she's really looking forward to having a great night out with her friends, and then she can crash at Nia's place.
The friends go shopping, and Jassie buys an outfit to wear to the club. Large hoop earrings, black high-heeled shoes, an orange jumpsuit, and a denim jacket with red lips and wings on the back.
Jassie dresses in her new outfit at her friend's apartment. She leaves everything there except her purse and her phone and heads to the party at this exclusive club. And she plans to return to her friend's apartment after the party.
Friends of Jassie, Asia and Reggie, are driving, but they go to her Lynn address, not Jassie's Dorchester apartment. This adds time and confusion to the event. Eventually, Nia and Jassie are picked up and make their way to Boston.
Aja and Reggie had never met Nia before, and she did know that she was going to be coming with them. So that was the second surprise of the night.
Some people do better with curveballs than others.
They all get to the club around 12:40 a.m. on Sunday, February 24th.
It's a very exclusive club and not easy to get into, but they managed to get a spot at the corner of the bar.
It's a typical party celebrating a birthday. They have a bottle of champagne, a few shots of tequila, then the women head to the dance floor to enjoy the evening.
By the time the girls arrive, the party is in full swing. People are drinking, loud music is playing, and everyone seems to be having a good time.
But the night goes awry.
When Jassie and Asia return, Nia's angry and aggressive, but they aren't sure why. This totally kills the party mood, and they aren't ever able to really get it back.
The group ends up leaving the club soon after, at about 2 a.m. Out on the street, intoxicated and angry, Nia shoves Jassie.
After the party starts to wind down, Nia's intoxicated, and she gets angry for whatever reason and starts to push Jassie. And because she's wearing high heels, probably under the influence of liquor, you become unstable. So she takes her high heels off to avoid falling when Nia is pushing her.
This is smart because Nia doesn't let up. She pushes her friend Jassie multiple times. Reggie and Asia try their best to persuade Jassie to come with them. They don't think Nia is safe, and it's clear that she's escalating.
But Jassie refuses to abandon her friend and opts to stay with the aggressive Nia. Asia and Reggie leave, but Asia forgets she has Jassie's shoes and takes them away, leaving Jassie barefoot.
So during this altercation with her friend Nia, they argue, and Nia storms off into the night, leaving Jassie alone to fend by herself.
So now Jassie, who was supposed to be celebrating a really special day, is suddenly in a bad situation.
She got into an argument with her friends and they ended up getting separated.
In this day and age, the cell phone is one of the most safety-driven devices you can have. It has a tracking ability. There's technology that you can access through the cell phone company to find the phone, things like Google Maps and all sorts of information that you may not be aware is in your phone, but the police or other agencies can utilize it. So to have your phone with you is a safety device in more ways than one.
She can't find Nia. She's all alone, and she has no shoes in the middle of the night in the winter in downtown Boston.
By the afternoon of February 26, 2019, Jassie's actual birthday, nobody has seen or heard from her.
Jassie isn't returning phone calls, and this isn't like her.
So the next day, the family's very concerned that Jassie did not show up to pick up her daughter, which is uncharacteristic of her behavior and personality. And Nia then connects with Jassie's father to try to find out what happened.
She hasn't picked up her daughter, and that seems ominous.
Typical, the family does all the checks with the friends, associates, what she was doing that night. They find nothing to indicate where she is or what she's done. So the father does the right thing and contacts the police.
The search continues, and Jassie's father pleads with the public to come forward with information about his daughter's whereabouts.
Well, with 600,000 people in the United States reported missing annually, 90% of those are either found or recovered within the first 48 hours, usually. The reason being 48 hours is that is the time when someone may go visit someone, they may become intoxicated, sleep overnight, spend the weekend. There's all sorts of reasons, but within 48 hours is the time frame where you have a chance to, A, discover if the person is really missing or deceased. After 48 hours, the percentage of solving that case drops off drastically day by day.
On Wednesday, February 27th, the Boston Police Department scour the area around the club and Tremont Street, where she was last identified.
Thankfully, they're able to spot her on the surveillance video, and they see her trying to get a ride.
She was trying to get an Uber ride back to her apartment that night.
But the Uber driver is waiting for someone else. She must be getting very cold by now, especially her bare feet. She tries her best to convince him, and we can tell by the look of her on the surveillance footage that she's getting fairly desperate.
I think at one point she was even, tapping on his window or throwing something at him, I want to say. From just watching it itself, I think it was really clear that she definitely was, she was drunk. Like she was, she had a couple. Like it's your birthday.
She's able to open the door and jumps in. But the driver pushes her out and she falls to the ground.
So as Jassie's laying on the ground, this unknown male approaches her, helps her to her feet, and she's visibly looking around for Nia and her friends when no one is there for her. She leaves with this individual on the evidence from the closed-circuit TV camera.
But from just looking at the footage itself, like there definitely was that cloud that something was wrong on her part that wasn't just her being drunk at the club with her friends. She must have been angry about something. Like I said, there was an argument, but I think there was something more carrying her.
Police want to know who helped Jassie up and walked her away.
And that was the last time all of her friends saw her.
Where is Jassie Correa?
Jassie Correa is missing after she gets into an argument with friends at a birthday party and gets separated at a nightclub. After losing her shoes, she's desperate to grab an Uber, but the driver pushes her out. Surveillance video shows a man come to her rescue.
This is a winter night in Boston. It's cold. She's barefoot. She's looking around for Nia. She doesn't want to probably leave without her, but when she can't see her, it's obvious she just wishes to survive and leaves with this individual.
The surveillance video shows the man encourage Jassie to jump on his back, and he gives her a piggyback ride down the street.
He may seem like a gentleman, but Jassie Correa is gravely mistaken.
Jassie Correa is born in Praia, Cape Verde on February 26, 1996. She immigrates to the United States when she is 3 years old. Her parents work hard to make a better life for Jassie, and she grows up in Dorchester, Massachusetts.
Jassie gets in a relationship and she has a child, but things don't go well. Unfortunately, she experiences both domestic abuse and poverty, but she's determined to turn things around for herself and her child.
So Jassie is in a shelter, a women's shelter, and she's being assisted by a social worker to get her life in order. This requires her to get obviously set up possibly for employment and to find daycare for her child so she can get on with her life. It's quite evident that she's trying to turn her life around and get on a good path.
In addition to waitressing part-time, she has an interview for another job closer to home this Monday.
She was a mother, she was an immigrant, she wanted things that I think anybody else would want if they came to this country with a young family or starting a family.
Jassie has a notepad with the words, "Life is my favorite adventure" on it. There she monitors her budget, to-do lists, makes notes about her job interview, and has daily affirmations such as, "You got this," "You can do it," and #Thrive.
Jassie Correa is poised to thrive.
Thankfully, she's got the support of her family and many friends, and perhaps because she's had so many hardships herself, she's known for being extremely compassionate and loving.
Jassie's disappearance prompts a plea from Boston police for any information about her whereabouts.
At this point in time, the Boston nightclub area is not a safe place for young women. There are indications of predators in the area, and it is someplace you do not want to be alone.
Just 1 month earlier, Olivia Ambrose becomes separated from her friends at a bar and is abducted. Police trace surveillance video, and after a 3-day search, she is found being held prisoner by a predator.
As soon as the information comes out that she has probably been abducted based on the video, the community unites behind this. They get together with all the police agencies, search groups, community, family, and they start to look for the abductor.
In Jassie's case, police are hoping for a similar outcome where the young woman is found alive. But they have grave expectations and have made an ID.
The police would take this closed-circuit television footage and examine it. They would blow it up, freeze it digitally, try to see who this person is who helped her up off the ground.
She's seen stumbling. She's noticeably very intoxicated.
Though he might seem like a good Samaritan, the police are getting a different picture. They see a man who is preying on a vulnerable woman.
So this particular club, obviously they have had reason to take images of ID coming through the door. For various reasons they do this, for security, underage, whatever the reason may be. So now they have all of these pictures that they have taken at the door. Police sort through these images and find a definitive person that looks like the one in the video.
It's a Rhode Island driver's license for a man named Lewis Coleman III with a Chestnut Street ID.
Jassie thinks she's going to get a ride home from Lewis Coleman, who acts like a gentleman while they're in public. However, after she gets into the vehicle with him, he just makes a series of sharp turns before pulling over, mere blocks from where he picked her up. He then turns off the car lights and sits there for approximately 12 minutes.
Then the lights go back on. The car pulls away from the curb, and Coleman turns right onto Aguadilla Street, which is a U-shaped street that connects to Tremont Street at both ends. Surveillance video shows Coleman proceeding down Aguadilla and taking another right.
Coleman pulls out onto Tremont Street and he sees 2 police cars with lights on. He begins to back up, obviously to try to get away.
The Google records indicate that just before 3 a.m., he travels from there onto I-93 and then to I-95 down to Providence, Rhode Island, where he lives at 95 Chestnut Street. Surveillance footage from Coleman's Providence apartment building shows Coleman at about 4:15 a.m. on Sunday, February 24th, parking and exiting the vehicle.
So from closed-circuit TV footage that they found at Coleman's apartment, they see him carrying Jassie's body over his shoulder with no clothes on from the waist up.
He returns to his car a short time later carrying a blanket. He uses this blanket to try and cover Jassie's body, but he isn't successful.
Once he enters the building, the surveillance video shows Coleman dragging her towards the elevator. The Boston Police Department contact the Providence, Rhode Island police, who attempt a wellness check on Coleman's apartment at 1 a.m. on Thursday, February 28th. But they can't get access to the building.
1:15 in the morning on February 28th, 2019, he is seen wheeling a heavy suitcase out of his apartment to his car. He struggles lifting this suitcase, which to law enforcement would indicate that there's something abnormal in that suitcase, that we would suspect probably a body based on the evidence that we've had to this point. It leaves the parking lot at 4 a.m. with that suitcase.
Coleman may have believed he was being stealthy and that no one saw him, but the police have numerous images of him.
Midday Thursday, Coleman's photograph is posted by Boston police as a suspect in the kidnapping case.
They sent out a bolo, from what I would understand, because it was the same car that he actually drove away from that night at venue.
There are two terms in law enforcement, bolo and bolof. Be on the lookout of, be on the lookout for. And that means you put character's name, birth date, picture if you have it, a vehicle, any information that other police officers or enforcement agencies can scan on their computers, and that will surface and give a bolo to the police department who are looking for him. In most cases, it will pop up immediately on a query. If you stop a roadside check and you run the person, that will pop up immediately on the screen of the police cruiser or at the headquarters of the police department if you run it. And you now go into the mode of seriousness that you need dealing with this particular case.
Say if you see this vehicle, call 911, contact Boston Providence Police. Providence obviously got involved with Boston Police, and then at that point, if they know that he is driving somewhere or trying to leave the state, they're gonna put a bolo out. They might not know initially where he's going, but they could at least contact neighboring police departments.
On the afternoon of February 28th, Coleman's vehicle is stopped by Delaware authorities on Interstate 95, south of Wilmington, Delaware.
So the officer that pulled him over probably just recognized the plate.
Officers ordered Coleman out of the vehicle and asked him if anyone else was in the vehicle with him.
And he very, very calmly says yes. So that is very interesting to me because it seems like he was very aware of what he was doing. And I watched footage of when Delaware police pulled him over, and one officer says, is there anybody else in the car?
Through the bolo, Coleman is checked, and he immediately tells the police that she is in the trunk of the car.
When they pulled him over in Delaware, they found her body in a suitcase.
Police identify the suspect who gives the missing Jassie Correa a ride home. Unknown to him, all of his strange behavior has been tracked by numerous surveillance cameras. Police pull over his vehicle and he tells them she's in the trunk.
When they pulled him over in Delaware, they found her body in a suitcase in the fetal position.
She is also inside of a sofa cushion cover, inside of a black trash bag, stuffed inside the exact same new suitcase that Coleman is seen bringing into his apartment on February 27th. She's bound with duct tape and covered with baking soda.
There was noticeable trauma, bruising. They found, traces of fluids in her body.
There are large cracks in the windshield on the passenger side, and Miss Correa has a bruised and bloodied face.
Coleman's arrested by the police, and through the investigation, the contents of the vehicle reveal his intentions.
Police also recover a duffel bag, a pair of new long-handled loppers, plastic garbage bags, clothing, a red plastic gas container, a green butane lighter, black gloves, charcoal air purifiers, air fresheners, tinted safety glasses, plastic bags, work towels, cloth work gloves, a new set of pliers, a laptop, a computer hard drive and tower, and disinfectant from the vehicle.
Police have had dealings with Lewis Coleman before.
He had a really good academic and, what I understand, a career background.
Originally from California, now living in Providence, Coleman holds a master's degree in experimental physics from Cal State University, Long Beach. He's working to develop a sleep aid app before starting a job in 2017 at a technologies corporation for which he is well paid.
The first thing that comes to my mind, honestly, like bland. Like, thinking about it's a guy from Cal U who studied, business. I mean, he didn't strike me as somebody who had a very colorful personality.
He has excellent expectations of promotion and has applied for further security clearance. On his personal website, Coleman describes himself as a developer, engineer, and physicist.
It sounds impressive, but not all is what it seems.
Through the background checks, they determined that at one of his presentations at university, his advisor told the police that he had struggled during conversation, began stuttering when he seemed to be under pressure.
Coleman is remembered as an average student who struggled with his finances and with assignment deadlines.
But Coleman has had many advantages. His family has supported him both financially and emotionally.
He has a credit card account for which his mother pays the bills.
A strange event occurs on the evening of February 17, 2019. Coleman reports to police that someone is repeatedly knocking on his apartment door.
So approximately a week before the murder takes place, he has a strange knocking at his door at his apartment. Coleman calls the police. The person knocking at the door won't answer or respond, so the police attend, but there's little they can do if they do not know who it is and there's no person there.
It's certainly possible that the knocking really happens, but auditory hallucinations can happen with drug use and alcohol abuse. It's also interesting that this happens only days before Coleman's explosion of rage and violence.
They are granted a search warrant, and law enforcement conduct the search and find evidence at Coleman's apartment.
Among other items, they find 2 respirator masks and notice that one of the 4 sofa cushion covers is missing.
In a dumpster outside of Coleman's apartment building, officers find white trash bags, a bag containing plastic sheets, men's jeans with bleach stains and a belt, a white nylon hooded coverall, an empty box of baking soda, clear safety goggles, a respirator mask, duct tape packaging, rubbing alcohol, shopping bags, used plastic gloves, an empty package from an air freshener, 3 empty packages of purifying charcoal, and a sponge.
These items could not be more damning, and they've been left right there for the detectives.
He's essentially handed all the evidence to the police they will ever need.
There's no way you can't say that he was intending on using that stuff for a purpose. You don't just go to the store and buy all those things like just to trim your shears or trim your bushes. It's strange to buy a large suitcase along with all these other materials, You're using them because you're trying to cover something up, essentially.
The autopsy shows that she was sexually assaulted before she was strangled to death. She has bruises to her head and torso, almost all of which occurred prior to her death.
Through the toxicology results of the autopsy, they find that her blood alcohol is 3 times the legal limit, and Jassie has cocaine in her system as well. Through the investigation, Jassie's DNA and Coleman's DNA are found in cracks in the glass in the car, which means she fought extremely hard inside that car.
In an interview with police, Coleman's asked about a wound over his cheekbone. He states, it's from the girl. He notes no medical or mental health issues or history of alcohol or drug use. Authorities find little explanation as to why Coleman rapes and kills Jassie Correa.
His history includes a 2012 incident where he was arrested for battering an ex-girlfriend.
I think that's the mark of somebody that knows they've done something bad, is you're trying to play it cool so that people aren't onto you, essentially.
Coleman is charged with kidnapping, causing death. It's a federal charge which carries a mandatory life sentence. And obviously law enforcement and the community want this guy taken out of the system forever.
They're taking a real risk by only charging him with kidnapping, because if he isn't found guilty, he could walk.
It should have been a birthday party to remember. But Jassie Correa, separated from friends and in need of a ride home, meets the wrong man. Prosecutors charged Lewis Coleman with kidnapping resulting in death. But that charge could be a gamble. Investigators put together what they believe happened the night of the murder. Coleman goes to the same club as Jassie. Arriving around 1 a.m., he meets a young woman named Lorna, and the two quickly connect.
Coleman tries to get Lorna to accompany him to the restroom, but her brother intercedes and whisks her away. When Coleman tries to find her later, she's nowhere to be found.
Coleman texts Lorna and finds that she has already left with her brother, which causes him some consternation, and he leaves the club. This is all evidence that comes from the closed-circuit video cameras, which provide police invaluable information during these cases.
As soon as he exits, Coleman passes by the Uber that Jassie is trying to get a ride from. He can't help but notice her predicament.
He continues down Tremont Street, but must hurry back as surveillance videos catch him directly beside the Uber at around 2:16 a.m.
Coleman obviously sees Jassie laying on the sidewalk. This is a crime of opportunity for a predator. There's a woman that he can help. He goes and bends over, talks to her, holds her hands for a couple of minutes talking to her. We don't know what is said, but he's trying to build a comfort zone with her so he can do what he wants to do. Jassie's head is swiveling back and forth during this time. She's obviously looking for her friend Nia or someone she may know from the party that could render her some assistance. Obviously, he builds enough comfort zone with her to be able to lure her into his car, where obviously the assault took place, and then he subsequently carried her into his apartment on Tremont.
He drives a short distance and then parks, sexually assaults her, strangles her to death over the course of 12 minutes. Jassie fights back, kicking in the windshield of Coleman's car as she struggles for her life.
After the murder, and he's taken the body into the apartment, he texts this Lorna person who he met at the bar earlier, and he also texts his boss and says that he needs a couple days off, sick time.
Three years after her death, in the spring of 2022, Lewis D. Coleman III stands trial at the U.S. District Court in Boston for the murder of Jassie Correa.
Who knows what he was thinking? Murders happen all the time through crimes of lust. People get angry and it ends up being the murder. Now, you have to go to the family and say this was not an accidental death. This girl was brutally murdered by this man. which adds further grief to the family who thought maybe she just disappeared, maybe she fell in the water and drowned, which is accidental. Now you have to deal with the fact she was murdered. You've got to go through a trial, go through all of this process. It's extremely horrible for the family of the victim. Coleman pleads not guilty, and he has a mark on his face, which he claims was from a shaving accident, which obviously was not the truth.
Jassie's friends and family filled the courtroom, praying for justice.
Every major outlet in the Boston area was covering it. Every outlet, or most outlets in Providence, were covering it because it has that Rhode Island connection. Outlets in Connecticut were covering it.
The prosecution contends that Coleman lures Jassie into his car, confines her there, sexually assaults her, strangles her to death, and transports her across the state line to Rhode Island. The defense argue that what happened in the car was unplanned and uninitiated by Coleman.
But as the medical examiner responds, someone being strangled loses consciousness several minutes before death. So Coleman clearly continued to strangle her while she wasn't fighting back. She was unconscious and helpless. There was no justification for his actions. Coleman's DNA is present in her vagina and her rectum, and his DNA is found in sperm samples from her vagina as well.
Jassie's body is found 4 days after her birthday celebration, 350 miles away in Delaware, bound in duct tape, folded into a fetal position, stuffed in a suitcase in the trunk of a car being driven by Coleman.
When you discover a body, there's time frames involved. Rigor mortis, you know, is within so many hours. Decomposition starts depending on the weather, the heat, whether there's water involved, and then the bodies bloat. They take on different looks through stages of decomposition. There's also insects, larvae that can be tested to give you a time frame. Typical of some of these criminals, they don't want to take responsibility for their actions. They make up excuses, but he left such a long trail of evidence that he could not avoid conviction.
Among numerous suspicious items found in the car are a gas can and a brand new lighter, items clearly intended to burn Jassie's body and dispose of the evidence.
In the days that follow Jassie's death, Coleman visits 2 car washes, buys a $150 air purifier, 36 pounds of baking soda, duct tape, 50-gallon trash bags, personal protective equipment, full-body coveralls, an odor respirator, a 600-pound rated dolly, and 3 Tyvek suits.
He bought all this stuff at the store. He bought the suitcase. When you think about it, he's kind of up against the clock. Like, he's got to calculate his next move. I think her body was there for about maybe 3, 4, 5 days, like almost a week.
Coleman wants to do everything he can to get rid of Jassie Correa's body so there isn't a trace left of her, and he's done a lot of research to that end.
Coleman's computer tower in his trunk reveals numerous searches on the hard drive between February 24th and 27th.
Between the 24th and the 27th of February, they search his computer tower. Some of those searches include whether a body can fit in a suitcase, how to dismember a body, how to embalm a body, and how to remove a healthy tooth.
This is compelling evidence for a jury.
On June 1st, 2022, a jury convicts Coleman of kidnapping resulting in death and gives Coleman the sentence of life imprisonment without parole, as well as restitution to Jassie Correa's family.
The judge notices that Coleman shows no remorse. During the sentencing hearing, Jassie's aunt just wants Coleman to look at her and explain why he killed her niece, but he refuses to look at the family and gives no response.
He's convicted and is put away for life.
Jassie Correa is a beautiful, vibrant young mother with all the promise in the world. But the brutal, tragic murder captures the public's attention.
Every TV outlet had it. I think even Boston police had it. You know, looked at tributes to her that people were commenting on her life and who she was.
One night of harmless partying for her birthday turns into tragedy because of Lewis Coleman.
Jassie was trying to get her life together. She was trying to get back on track, and like many young women, she did nothing wrong. She was out having a good time with her friends, ran into this predator who was obviously looking for someone, and it ended her life.
He might have just targeted her because she was young, she was attractive.
Jassie was too good a friend to leave Nia behind, and unfortunately, Coleman took full advantage of that.
The family are always somewhat relieved when they see a conviction, but it does not replace the loss of a loved one. It never can. That pain never goes away. Even though it's a life sentence, it does not replace the one who is lost.
It's obviously a very emotional situation. To be 25 and to have a young kid, especially immigrating from another country, like she probably had a lot she wanted to do and a lot to prove. She was a mother, she was an immigrant, she wanted things that I think anybody else would want if they came to this country with a young family.
The Correas rally around Jassie's young child and bring her up in a loving home. But they do worry about what happens when that child gets older and learns about what happened to her mother.